Hey everyone, thanks for tuning in to my very first real monologue. So today I'm going to be talking about a movie that some of you may have heard of, some of you may not have heard of, but this movie is called Blade Runner. This came out in 1982. It was directed by Ridley Scott. The cinematographer for this movie is Jordan Cronenweth. And so I got to shout out Jordan Cronenweth, and I got to shout out the EEG group, which did the special effects for this movie. This movie is one of the best looking movies I've ever seen in my life. I remember watching this undergrad in college and just being blown away by how old this movie was and just the way it looked, and just thinking like, how can a movie from 1982 look better than a lot of these movies that are coming out with heavy CGI nowadays? That's crazy, and that still blows me away. So I gotta shout them out. Jordan Cronenweth, he shot this movie with 65mm film for all the live action scenes. The camera he used is the Panavision Panaflex Gold camera. And Michael Yuricich led the EEG group, which is the entertainment effects group, and they did everything from the matte painting to the frontal projections to the optical compositing for this movie. And so they use zero CGI. Believe it or not, this movie has no CGI. All it is matte paintings and miniature paintings, and it looks phenomenal. So I gotta shout them out. But this movie it just looks and feels real. Everything feels tangible. Just all the scenes in this movie are outstanding. And so I think that if you're talking about just one of the best visually looking sci-fi movies I've ever seen, this is definitely top 5. Like it's phenomenal looking. So gotta shout it out. But for the people who are not familiar with Blade Runner, basically the basic premise of this movie is Rick Deckard, played by Harrison Ford, he gets detained by his former supervisor at the very beginning of the movie. And so he's telling him, look, I know you're retired, you're living your best life, but I'm gonna go ahead and take you in because look, we got some replicants out here that's on the loose. They're coming to Earth illegally, and we need you to get back to doing what you do best, which is killing these replicants. So Harrison Ford, of course, he's like, man, I gotta do this again. Like, I thought I was retired, I was chilling, but that's where we're at now. And so you have these certain replicants that are, coming to Earth illegally, and they need to be stopped. And so the very beginning of this movie, you meet this replicant named Leon. He's being put through this comp test. And so a comp test is basically where you ask these replicants a series of questions, and when you ask them these series of questions, you're hoping to find out that they're a replicant, right? And so Leon basically freaks out and he ends up killing the person in the beginning of the movie. So that's where we are now. And so we meet these replicants throughout the movie, and that's kind of how the story goes. And so I don't want to break down all the plot points for this movie, but for my Blade Runner fans out there, what I do want to talk about is Rick Deckard a replicant or is he not a replicant? Well, my answer to that is, yeah, I think he's a replicant, but I don't think that's important. Like, I don't think Ridley Scott really cared to tell anybody because he hasn't confirmed if he is or not. But it's amazing that this movie came out in 82 and that people are still talking about, is he a replicant, is he not a replicant? So for my Blade Runner fans out there, if you've seen this movie and you just kind of forgot some of it, or if you've seen it and you want me to answer this, yes, I think he's a replicant. I know in the director's cut, it was just kind of strange because it's like the end of the movie is this dream sequence of this unicorn. And I remember when I first saw that, I didn't know what to make of it. I'm like, okay, it's a dream sequence, it's a unicorn. That doesn't make any sense, I don't get it, whatever. But then when you watch the final cut, it all starts to come together because the dream sequence of the unicorn is in the middle of the movie. And then at the end of the movie, you get Rick Deckard, right before he's about to leave with Rachel, he picks up this origami unicorn that Gaff left for him. And that's basically Gaff's way of saying, I know what you've been dreaming. You're a replicant. Bah, there you go. So that's that. But anyways, this movie, does it have flaws? Absolutely. There's 7 different versions of this movie. So anytime there's 7 different versions of a movie, you know there's going to be flaws. But I would like to say this is a flawed masterpiece. I think that's the best way to put it. Just because, yeah, it takes the final cut to put everything together, but I just think that Ridley Scott had to go back and add things, change things, because critics back then just didn't understand this movie. It didn't make sense to them. They weren't pleased by it. And so eventually over time, this movie ended up being a cult classic. And now it's just reigned as awesome sci-fi, some of the best work ever. And I think it deserves to be praised. It's an awesome movie. And what's funny about it is Dustin Hoffman was actually supposed to play Rick Deckard, but apparently him and Ridley Scott kind of got into it, and Dustin Hoffman wasn't in the movie anymore, so he ended up getting Harrison Ford, which was a smart choice because Harrison Ford was coming off the rise and success of Raiders of the Lost Ark. He was Indiana Jones and he was Han Solo, so he kind of already had a proven track record. So That was a smart choice. Ridley Scott, good job. But, you know, this movie is basically, it's based on this book by Philip K. Dick called Do Androids Dream of Electric Sleep? And so even though it's based on this novel, I can't help but think of another book by Mary Shelley called Frankenstein. I know all of y'all looking at me like, what are you talking about? Mary Shelley, Frankenstein, what does that have to do with this? Well, to me, I think when you look at these replicants and you look at this movie, you ask yourself, okay, who is the real monster, right? Is it Tyrell and the Tyrell Corporation, or is it the replicants? So in my opinion, the replicants, they're coming to Earth illegally, okay. So what? Do they deserve to be killed for that? Like, in my eyes, the replicants really weren't doing anything wrong. Even if you look at the beginning of the movie where Leon kills the person for asking him the questions, okay, well, that's kind of his reaction to this contest. I don't think replicants do a good job with that. The only one in the movie who was able to get past this contest was Rachel. And so I just don't think that they're really doing anything wrong. Roy is trying to expand his lifespan. He just wants to get in contact with Tyrell and the Tyrell Corporation. He ends up finding Sebastian, who helped create these replicants. And all he wants to do is expand his lifespan. That's all he wants to do. Zora, she was minding her own business. She was working in a strip club. Rick Deckard killed her, like, because that was his job. But Zora was minding her own business. She wasn't doing anything. So just my whole thing is just who's the real monster in this? To me, Tyrell and the Tyrell Corporation are the real monsters. Rick Deckard himself could even be the real monster in this movie. Like, it's just, you know, that's the way I see it, right? But there's so many different religious themes in this movie, so many philosophical sayings and deep meanings. I can't get into all of it, but like when you watch this movie, just look out for the hidden gems in this movie. It's really good. But man, it's just, I think my favorite scene in this movie is when Rick Deckard kills Zora and she's just running and he shoots her and it's in slow motion and you got this beautiful score playing and then she's just kind of flying through the windows and then she finally dies. I thought that was a really cool scene. It looked really good. I also like the last act of the movie when Rick Deckard basically finds where the replicants are hiding out at and he runs into Pris. That scene is kind of creepy because she's still like a mannequin. She's like still, and then she ends up fighting him, and it's just a creepy scene overall. And Roy Batty, he gives a crazy performance, like just basically knocking over these brick walls and howling out Rick Deckard's name and all this crazy stuff. But I really don't think these replicants were that bad. Like when you think about it, Rick Deckard's life was definitely saved twice in this movie. So the first time his life was saved was when Leon was about to kill him, but Rachel ends up shooting and killing Leon to save Rick Deckard's life. That's the first time. The second time he gets saved is when they're on the rooftop and he's about to fall. And Roy Batty picks him up, sits him down and saves his life. And he gives a phenomenal soliloquy basically saying, "My memories will be lost in time like tears in the rain." That's definitely an iconic scene. If you haven't seen it, if people who have seen it, you know that's an iconic scene. But I'm just like, these replicants really just aren't that bad to me. So I don't know. I think they're all good. But anyways, I think this movie is really good. I think that Blade Runner 2049 did a really good job as far as being a really good sequel and kind of following the same formula that Blade Runner did, the original. And I think it's great. I think it's phenomenal. So if you want to watch this movie, it's on HBO Max, the final cut 2007. Like I said, I've seen 3 versions of this movie. I've seen the 82 theatrical cut, I've seen the 1992 director's cut, and I've seen the 2007 final cut. Definitely watch the final cut. It's on HBO Max. And just let me know what you think about it. I think it's a really good looking movie. I think that the acting is going to be on point as well. And I think you'll be able to see like a lot of movies that you've seen over the years are kind of influenced by this movie. You'll definitely be able to see it. So, hey, I recommend that. I appreciate y'all tuning in to my very first real monologue. If you aren't already, please do follow us at The Real For Real on Instagram. And please do, if you're watching this video, please do like and subscribe. Thank you. Have a good one. Peace.